Ambassador Park Min-ho sat alone in the human delegation box, watching as the massive chamber filled with representatives from across the galaxy. The grand amphitheater of the Galactic Council could hold thousands, and today it seemed every seat would be taken. Min-ho adjusted his translator earpiece and tried to calm his racing heart. He knew what was coming. The Zerthan delegate, Ambassador Krull, had called this emergency session. The notice had been brief and cold. The subject line had said everything. Motion to expel humanity from Galactic Council membership. Humanity had been probationary members for only 3 months. 3 months of trying to prove they belonged among the stars. 3 months of careful diplomacy and hopeful trade agreements. Now it might all end before it truly began. The chamber lights dimmed. The council speaker, a towering Valdari with silver skin that reflected the overhead lights, struck the resonance staff against the floor. The deep sound echoed through the vast space, calling the session to order. The council recognizes Ambassador Krill of Zertha, the speaker announced. Krill rose from his delegation box. He was tall and thin, with 4 arms and eyes that seemed to see everything at once. His species had been part of the council for over 2,000 years. They valued logic, order, and predictability above all things. "Honored delegates," Krill began, his voice calm and measured. "I stand before you today with a difficult but necessary proposal. Humanity must be expelled from this council immediately." A murmur ran through the chamber. Min-ho's hands gripped the armrests of his chair. "I do not make this motion lightly," Krill continued. "I have studied the humans carefully since their arrival. I have reviewed their history, their culture, their patterns of behavior. My conclusion is unavoidable. Humans are fundamentally incompatible with galactic civilization." Holographic displays lit up throughout the chamber. Krill gestured to the first set of data. "Consider their economic impact. In just 3 months, human trade has disrupted markets that have been stable for centuries. They undercut established prices. They create products that appeal to emotion rather than function. They refuse to follow proper commercial protocols." The displays showed graphs and charts, human trade routes spreading like wildfire, traditional trading partnerships dissolving, established businesses losing customers to human alternatives. "They are too emotional," Krill said, his voice growing stronger. "They make decisions based on feelings rather than logic. This makes them unpredictable and dangerous to galactic stability." More displays appeared. These showed human cultural exports, movies that made people cry, music that made them dance, stories that made them question their own societies. "Look at what they have done to our youth," a Lithian delegate called out. "My daughter spends hours watching human entertainment. She asks questions about things that never concerned her before. She challenges traditions that have served us for millennia." Several delegates voiced agreement. Min-ho felt his stomach tighten. "They are too violent," another delegate added. "Their history is filled with wars and conflicts. How can we trust such a species?" Krill nodded. "Precisely. The humans claim they have changed, that they have evolved beyond their violent past. But can we risk the peace of the galaxy on such claims? I say we cannot." The displays changed again. These showed human protest movements, human sports, human debates. Everything was presented as evidence of chaos and instability. "They question everything," Krill said. "They challenge authority. They refuse to accept that some things are simply the way they are. This attitude is spreading to other species. Already we see signs of unrest on worlds that have had contact with humans." The speaker turned toward the human delegation box. "Ambassador Park, you will be given 5 minutes to respond to these charges." Min-ho stood on shaking legs. He had prepared a speech, but looking at the faces around the chamber, he wondered if words would matter at all. "Honored delegates," he began. "Humanity." "Point of order," Krill interrupted. I move that we limit the human response to facts only, not emotional appeals. Sustained, the speaker said. Ambassador Park, please restrict your comments to factual rebuttals. Minho took a breath. The economic data Ambassador Krill presented lacks context. Human trade has created new markets, not destroyed old ones. The total galactic economy has grown by... Irrelevant, Krill interrupted again. Growth through chaos is not true growth. It is destabilization masquerading as progress. Several delegates nodded in agreement. Minho tried again. Regarding cultural influence, humans have also adopted much from galactic culture. We have learned from... That is not the concern, a Solarian delegate spoke up. The concern is that your influence spreads faster and deeper than your ability to control it. You are like a disease, fast-spreading and impossible to contain. Minho felt anger rising but forced it down. We are not a disease. We are simply a young species trying to find our place among... Emotional appeal, Krill said flatly. Dismissed. The speaker struck the resonant staff again. Ambassador Park, do you have any concrete evidence that humanity is compatible with galactic civilization? Minho opened his mouth, then closed it. He had testimonials from human partners. He had data showing successful collaborations. He had examples of human contributions to science and art. But looking at the chamber, he realized none of it would matter. They had already decided. I request additional time to prepare a proper response, Minho said quietly. Krill's expression might have been a smile. Of course, the council is fair and just. We will vote in 7 days. That should give you ample time to prepare whatever evidence you believe exists. The mockery in his voice was subtle but clear. This session is adjourned, the speaker announced. We will reconvene in 7 days for the final vote on humanity's expulsion. The chamber erupted in conversation as delegates filed out. Minho remained in his seat, watching them go. Some looked sympathetic. Most looked relieved that a difficult problem would soon be solved. He finally stood and made his way through the station concourse. The corridors were crowded with beings from hundreds of species, all going about their daily lives. Near a small plaza, Minho heard laughter. He turned to see a group of alien children playing together. They were playing a human video game, laughing and shouting as they competed. One of the parents noticed Minho watching. The parent's expression changed immediately. They called to their child sharply and pulled them away from the group. The child protested, but the parent was firm. As they passed Minho, the parent made a point of moving to the far side of the corridor. Minho watched them go. Then he returned to the human embassy and began composing a message to Earth. He needed help. Humanity needed a miracle. 7 days to save everything they had worked for. 7 days to prove they belonged among the stars. He had no idea where to even begin. Secretary General Choi Yuna read Minho's message 3 times before calling the emergency cabinet meeting. Within an hour, every department head in the United Earth government sat in the crisis room, their faces showing varying degrees of shock and anger. 7 days, Yuna said, her voice steady despite the pressure. We have 7 days to prove humanity deserves a place in the galactic community. Every department will contribute. I want documentation of every positive contribution we have made since joining the council. I want testimonials, data, anything that shows our value. The room erupted into activity. Ministers contacted their staff. Analysts began pulling reports. The diplomatic corps started reaching out to friendly alien governments for support. On Zenith Prime Station, Minho received the first batch of materials within hours. Medical advances that human doctors had shared freely with alien colleagues, agricultural techniques that had increased crop yields on 3 different worlds, artistic collaborations between human and alien musicians, scientific papers co-authored by mixed species teams. He reviewed everything carefully. It was all good work. It showed humanity's positive impact. But as he read through page after page, a sinking feeling grew in his stomach. None of it felt strong enough. It was all too abstract, too easily dismissed. Krill would simply argue that any species could have made these contributions. Nothing here showed what made humanity unique or necessary. Minho sent a message back to Earth. We need something more, something that shows who we truly are, not just what we can do. On Earth, the search intensified. Every department dug deeper into their records. The Colonial Affairs Office was no exception. A junior analyst named Li Jiwan had been assigned to review frontier reports. She was methodical and thorough, reading through incident reports from every human colony and outpost in contested space. Most reports were routine: supply deliveries, equipment malfunctions, minor disputes with neighboring settlements. But one series of reports caught her attention. They came from the Threshold sector, a region of space claimed by multiple species and recognized by none. It was lawless territory where the Council's rules did not apply. The reports described various incidents involving human vessels over the past year. What struck Jiwan was the pattern. Again and again, human ships had responded to distress calls in the sector. They helped damaged vessels regardless of species. They shared supplies with stranded miners. They evacuated workers from failing stations. None of it was required. The Threshold sector was outside Council jurisdiction. Humans had no obligation to help anyone there. Yet they did, consistently and without asking for anything in return. One report stood out. It was marked with the highest security classification. The file was titled simply, Cordova 7 Incident. Jiwan needed special clearance just to access the summary. What she read made her stop breathing for a moment. She immediately flagged it for Minho's attention with a brief note. This might be what you are looking for. All witnesses are alive and willing to speak. The station's surveillance system captured everything. Minho received the notification during what passed for night on Zenith Prime. He requested the full file and the accompanying video footage. The authorization took hours to process, each minute feeling like an eternity. When the files finally arrived, Minho started with the written report. It detailed an incident at mining station Cordova 7 10 months earlier. A catastrophic reactor failure, an impossible situation, a human freight convoy. He read the entire report twice, his hands shaking. Then he opened the video file. The footage was from multiple camera angles, showing different parts of the incident simultaneously. Minho watched in silence. The video was 47 minutes long. When it ended, he sat staring at his screen, unable to move. He watched it again and again. By the fourth viewing, tears were running down his face. This was it. This was what he needed to show the Council. Not abstract contributions or diplomatic achievements. Not charts and graphs showing economic benefits. This was humanity stripped bare, showing exactly who they were in the moment when nothing else mattered. But the footage was classified at the highest level. Military intelligence had sealed it for reasons Minho understood. The incident had occurred in disputed territory during a tense period. Releasing the footage could have diplomatic consequences. He composed a message to Secretary General Yuna. He chose his words carefully, knowing what he was asking. I found something. Footage from the Cordova 7 incident in the Threshold sector. I need permission to show it to the Council. I know it is classified. I know there are reasons it has been sealed. But Madam Secretary, they need to see this. They need to see who we really are. Not our best diplomatic face or our most careful political presentation. Our actual face. What we do when nobody is watching and nothing requires us to act. It is terrifying and beautiful, and they need to see it. On Earth, Yuna watched the video herself. She sat alone in her office, the door locked, the windows dimmed. When it ended, she sat in darkness for a long time. She called her Security Council. She called military intelligence. She called the families of the people shown in the video. Every conversation was difficult. Every authorization required multiple levels of clearance. The families were the hardest calls. Yuna spoke to parents and spouses and children. She explained what Minho wanted to do. She explained why it mattered. She asked permission to share the last moments of people they loved with the entire galaxy. Every single family said yes. The final authorization came from Captain Song Hana herself. She was the ranking survivor from Cordova 7, though calling her a survivor felt wrong. She had lost her entire crew. She had lost people she loved like family. The incident had ended her career and left scars that would never fully heal. Minho spoke to her directly via secure channel. Her face on the screen showed a woman who had seen too much but remained standing anyway. Captain Song, I want to show the Council what happened at Cordova 7, Minho said. I want to show them the video, all of it. I believe it is the only thing that might change their minds about humanity. But I will not do it without your permission. Song was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was steady. Ambassador, my crew knew the risks. They made their choice. If showing what they did helps the Council understand what humanity is capable of, then show them everything. Do not hide anything. Do not soften it. They died doing something impossible because it was the right thing to do. Let the galaxy see that. Thank you, Captain, Minho said quietly. Do not thank me, Song replied. Just make sure their choice mattered. Make sure it meant something. The connection ended. Minho sat in his small quarters on Zenith Prime Station and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, Cordova 7 still orbited its sun. The mining station had been repaired and reopened. 2,000 workers from 17 different species went about their daily lives, probably never thinking about the day they should have died. Minho sent the final request to Earth. Within 6 hours, he had authorization to present the video to the Council. The file was transferred to the Council's presentation system. Technical staff verified it would play correctly on all the chamber's display systems. 5 days remained until the vote. Minho spent them watching the video again and again. He studied every detail. He memorized every face. He learned the names of all 122 people who appeared in the footage. When delegates passed him in the corridors, some offered sympathetic looks. Most pretended not to see him. Word had spread that the human ambassador had requested time to present one final piece of evidence. The general consensus was that it would not matter. The vote was already decided. Minho did not sleep the night before the final session. He sat in the observation deck, watching ships come and go from the station. Vessels from hundreds of species, all part of the vast galactic civilization that humanity desperately wanted to join. Tomorrow, they would see what humans truly were. Then they would decide if such beings belonged among the stars. Minho requested a private meeting with Ambassador Krill 2 days before the final vote. He expected rejection, but Krill agreed almost immediately. They met in a neutral conference room on the station's diplomatic level. Krill arrived precisely on time, as expected. He settled into his chair with the fluid grace of his species and regarded Minho with what might have been curiosity. Ambassador Park, Krill said, I confess I am interested in what you hope to accomplish with this meeting. Surely you understand the vote is a formality at this point. Minho met his gaze steadily. I would like to propose a compromise. Allow me to present one piece of evidence before the final vote. Just one. If it fails to move the Council, I will accept the result without further protest. Krill's expression did not change, but something shifted in his posture. One piece of evidence, and you believe this will somehow overcome months of careful analysis showing humanity's fundamental incompatibility with galactic civilization? I am asking for the chance to try, Minho said simply. Krill was silent for a moment. Then he made a gesture that Minho had learned meant agreement. Very well. You may have your 15 minutes before we vote. I grant this because I am confident nothing you present will change the inevitable outcome. Also, it will demonstrate the Council's fairness. We gave humanity every opportunity to prove themselves worthy. Thank you, Minho said. Do not thank me yet, Krill replied. In 2 days, your species will be expelled from the Council. Your people will return to Earth and remain there, isolated from galactic civilization, perhaps forever. That is not cruelty, Ambassador. It is simply reality. Some species are meant for the stars, others are not. Minho left the meeting and returned to his quarters. He knew Krill believed he was being kind in his own way. The Zerthan genuinely thought he was protecting the galaxy from chaos. That made it harder somehow. It would be easier if Krill were simply evil. But he was not. He was logical, rational, and completely certain he was right. Word spread quickly through the station that the human ambassador had secured time to present evidence. The reaction was mixed. Some delegates expressed curiosity about what Minho might show. Most treated it as confirmation that humanity was desperate and grasping at straws. Over the next 2 days, several delegates approached Minho privately. A few were sympathetic. The Solarian ambassador Velis found him in the diplomatic lounge on the evening before the vote. Ambassador Park, Velis said, settling into a nearby chair. May I speak frankly? Of course, Minho replied. I have enjoyed working with you these past months. You are intelligent, thoughtful, and genuinely kind. I believe you personally would be an asset to this council. Velis paused. But I fear that is not enough. Your species feels too much. You make decisions with your hearts instead of your minds. The galaxy needs stability and predictability. I am sorry, but I do not see how any evidence can overcome that fundamental difference. What if our emotions are not a weakness? Minho asked. What if they are simply different from what you are used to? Velis considered this. Perhaps. But different in ways that make your species dangerous to the established order. Change is not always good, Ambassador. Sometimes tradition exists for important reasons. After Velis left, Minho remained in the lounge. He ordered tea and sat watching the stars through the massive viewport. Other delegates came and went. Some nodded politely. Others ignored him completely. One Zerthan maintenance worker muttered something in their language as they passed. Minho's translator caught it. Emotional fool. Minho did not react. He simply sipped his tea and thought about the video he would show tomorrow. That night, he contacted Earth one final time. Secretary General Yuna appeared on the screen, looking tired but determined. Everything is prepared, Yuna said. The video will play correctly. We have verified all systems. Minho, are you certain about this? Once you show them, there is no taking it back. I am certain, Minho said. They need to see who we are, really see us, not the version of humanity we present in diplomatic meetings. The truth. The truth might frighten them more than our diplomatic facade, Yuna said quietly. Perhaps, Minho agreed. But at least they will understand what they are rejecting. They will know exactly who we are before they send us away. Yuna nodded. Then show them. Show them everything. Good luck, Ambassador. The connection ended. Minho tried to sleep, but could not. He spent the night reviewing his brief remarks. He had decided to keep his introduction simple. The video would speak for itself. At some point near dawn, he gave up on sleep entirely. He showered and dressed in his formal ambassadorial robes. He reviewed the video one final time, not because he needed to see it again, but because it felt important to honor what he was about to share. The faces in the video looked back at him. Ordinary people, a freight captain, mechanics, engineers, a cook, a retired teacher who had taken a job on a cargo ship because she wanted to see the stars. None of them had been soldiers. None of them had been heroes before that day. Minho thought about what Captain Song had told him. They made their choice. Yes, they had. And tomorrow, the entire galaxy would see what that choice looked like. He arrived at the council chamber early. The technical staff helped him verify the video file one last time. Everything was ready. The massive display screens throughout the amphitheater would show the footage from multiple angles simultaneously, exactly as it had been recorded. As the chamber began to fill, Minho watched the delegates arrive. They came in groups, talking among themselves. The general mood seemed almost festive. This was the day the human question would finally be resolved. The galaxy could return to normal. Ambassador Krill arrived and took his seat. He glanced at Minho and made a small gesture that might have been sympathy or might have been satisfaction. It was hard to tell with Zerthans. The Solarian delegation filed in. Velis caught Minho's eye and nodded respectfully. The Valdari arrived in their usual formation. The Lithians took their seats in the upper galleries. Representatives from 200 species filled the amphitheater. The chamber lights dimmed. The council speaker struck the resonance staff. The deep sound rolled through the vast space, calling everyone to attention. This council is convened to vote on the expulsion of humanity from galactic civilization, the speaker announced. Before we proceed to the vote, Ambassador Krill of Zertha will present a summary of the case for expulsion. Following that, Ambassador Park Minho of Earth will be permitted 15 minutes to present evidence in humanity's defense. Then we will vote. Krill rose. His summary was brief and devastating. He reviewed all the arguments he had made in the previous session. He added new data showing continued human disruption of galactic norms. He concluded with a simple statement. Humanity is too emotional, too unpredictable, and too dangerous to remain among us. Logic demands we protect galactic civilization from chaos. I call for immediate expulsion. Many delegates indicated agreement. The mood in the chamber was clear. The vote was decided. The speaker turned toward the human delegation box. Ambassador Park, you may present your evidence. You have 15 minutes. Minho stood. His legs felt steady despite everything. He had spent days being nervous. Now that the moment had arrived, he felt strangely calm. He walked to the center of the chamber where speakers traditionally stood. Every eye in the amphitheater focused on him. Honored delegates, Minho said, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber. You say humanity is too emotional, that we make decisions with our hearts instead of our minds. You are right, we do. I am not going to argue that you are wrong about us. Instead, I am going to show you exactly what that looks like. He gestured to the technical staff. 10 months ago, Mining Station Cordova 7 in the Threshold sector sent a distress signal. What happened next will show you who humans truly are. I ask only that you watch. The lights dimmed further. The massive display screens lit up. The video began to play. The displays throughout the chamber showed Cordova 7 from multiple angles. It was a standard mining station orbiting a resource-rich asteroid. The timestamp showed it was a normal working day. Workers from 17 different species moved through corridors, operated equipment, and went about their routines. Then alarms began blaring throughout the station. The video shifted to the reactor control room. Engineers stared at their displays in horror. Numbers climbed rapidly on screens. Warning lights flashed red across every panel. A Lithian supervisor spoke into the communication system, her voice steady despite obvious fear. This is Cordova 7 to any vessels in range. We have a catastrophic reactor failure. Containment breach in progress. We are evacuating all personnel. Repeat, this is an emergency evacuation. Any ships in range, please respond. The station AI's voice came through speakers throughout the facility. Its tone was calm and emotionless as it delivered terrible news. Reactor detonation in 8 minutes. All personnel proceed to evacuation pods immediately. 8 minutes to critical failure. The displays showed chaos erupting throughout the station. 2,000 workers from 17 species ran for evacuation pods. Parents grabbed children. Supervisors tried to maintain order, but there were not enough pods for everyone. The math was simple and brutal. The video split screen showed two locations simultaneously. On the left, the frantic evacuation continued. On the right, a human freight convoy traveling through the sector. 5 cargo ships, old and worn from years of service. The distress call reached the convoy. Captain Songhana sat in the command chair of the lead ship. She was in her 50s, with gray hair and tired eyes. She looked like someone's grandmother, not a hero. Song listened to the distress call. Her navigator brought up the calculations immediately. The station was 42 minutes away at maximum speed. The reactor would detonate in 8 minutes. "It is impossible, Captain," the navigator said quietly. "We cannot reach them in time." Song stared at the display. Her face showed the calculations running through her mind. Then she leaned forward and activated the fleet communication channel. "All ships, emergency acceleration. Push the engines past safety limits. We are going to Cordova 7. "Captain," her first officer said gently, "even if we destroy our engines getting there, we will arrive 34 minutes too late. There is nothing we can do." "I know," Song said. "Accelerate anyway." The display showed the human ships burning hard toward the station. Their engines glowed bright as they pushed beyond recommended limits. Inside the council chamber, delegates watched in confusion. Why were the humans racing toward a situation they could not possibly help? The video returned to Cordova 7. The countdown continued. 7 minutes. 6 minutes. Workers crammed into evacuation pods. Station staff made impossible choices about who would get the limited spaces available. Then a Zerthan patrol appeared on sensors. 3 military ships, fast and well-equipped. They arrived at Cordova 7 with 5 minutes remaining before detonation. The council delegates recognized standard Zerthan military protocols immediately. The patrol followed proper procedure exactly. They docked with the station and began systematic evacuation. Their efficiency was impressive. Pod after pod launched toward the patrol ships. 4 minutes remaining. 3 minutes. The Zerthan patrol evacuated 800 workers. Then their commander made the mathematically correct decision. "We have reached safe capacity. All ships withdraw to minimum safe distance. We cannot risk our crews for those who remain." The Zerthan ships pulled back. It was the right choice. It was logical. They had saved as many as possible. Remaining at the station would only add their crews to the casualty list. Every species in the galaxy trained their military to make this exact decision. On the displays, 1,200 workers remained on Cordova 7. The camera angles showed their faces. Terror. Acceptance. Parents holding children. Friends embracing. Everyone knew what was coming. 2 minutes remained. The display shifted back to the human convoy. They were still 12 minutes away. Captain Song watched her countdown. Her crew watched her, waiting for orders. One of her engineers spoke hesitantly. "Captain, there might be a way." "Explain," Song said. "If we perform an emergency core dump, our reactors become essentially kinetic missiles. We could set them to overload on impact. If we aim the ships at the station and detonate on collision, the force might knock Cordova 7 out of its current decaying orbit. It would buy maybe 10, 11 minutes. Enough time for the Zerthan patrol to return and finish the evacuation." The first officer stared at the engineer. "That would require perfect trajectory calculations. The slightest error and we miss completely or destroy the station, and the crew would have 90 seconds to evacuate to escape pods before impact." "Yes," the engineer agreed. Song looked at her display. She looked at her crew. These were freight workers. They hauled cargo between stations. They were not soldiers. They were not trained heroes. They were ordinary people with families and lives and futures. "Send the calculations to all ships," Song said quietly. "Ask for volunteers. I need at least one pilot per ship to guide them in. Everyone else evacuates to pods before impact." The council chamber was completely silent now. Every delegate understood what they were watching. The video showed the responses coming back from the other 4 ships in the convoy. Every captain volunteered immediately. Then their crew members began volunteering, not just pilots, engineers, navigation specialists, a mechanic, a cook who had some piloting training decades ago, a retired teacher who worked in cargo processing. They all knew it was a one-way trip. The escape pods would not launch in time. The volunteers would ride the ships all the way to impact. Song tried to order them to evacuate. They refused. 122 people across 5 ships refused direct orders and stayed aboard. The display showed their faces. A young mechanic who could not have been more than 20. A grandfather with photos of his family on his workstation. 2 sisters who worked as navigation team on one of the ships. They recorded brief messages to their loved ones. Some cried, some smiled. One man made jokes trying to keep spirits up. "Tell Earth we made the delivery," became the common sign-off. The Zerthan patrol watched from safe distance. Their commander contacted Song directly. "Human vessel, what are you doing? You cannot reach the station in time." "Watch us," Song replied. The human ships came in fast, their trajectories perfect. The calculations had to be exact. Too shallow and they would bounce off. Too steep and they would punch through the station and destroy it. The margin for error was 0. 90 seconds before impact, the time for escape pod launch passed. The volunteers were committed. There was no going back. The displays showed inside the ships. The volunteers sat at their stations. Some held hands with crewmates, some prayed, some just watched their screens making tiny adjustments to keep their trajectories perfect. Captain Song sat in her command chair. Her hands were steady on the controls. She looked at Peace. "All ships, final trajectory check," she said calmly. Each ship confirmed. Perfect alignment, perfect speed, perfect angle. Song took a deep breath and opened a final transmission. "This is Captain Song Hana of the Earth Freight Convoy. To anyone watching, tell our families we love them. Tell Earth we made the delivery. Tell the galaxy that humanity was here." The 5 ships hit Cordova 7 simultaneously. The impacts were perfectly coordinated. The reactors detonated. The massive kinetic force knocked the station exactly as calculated, pushing it into stable orbit. The Zerthan patrol stared at their sensors in shock. Then their commander did something unprecedented. He violated standard protocols and ordered an immediate return to the station. "Maximum speed. Get back there now." The patrol ships raced back to Cordova 7. With the extra 11 minutes bought by the human sacrifice, they evacuated every remaining worker. All 1,200 lives saved. The final camera angle showed the debris field where the human ships had been. 5 ships, 122 people. All gone. The video ended. The council chamber sat in absolute silence. Nobody moved. The enormous chamber, filled with representatives from 200 species, sat in stunned silence. The display screens had gone dark, but the images remained burned into every mind present. Minho stood in the center of the chamber. He had not moved during the entire video. Now he spoke, his voice quiet, but carrying clearly in the silence. "You say we are too emotional," he said, "that we make decisions with our hearts instead of our minds. You are absolutely right. When Captain Song saw those 1,200 people about to die, she did not calculate probabilities of success. She did not consider cost-benefit ratios. She did not follow logical protocols." He paused, looking around at the delegates. She simply could not let them die alone. None of the volunteers could. They were ordinary people, freight workers. They hauled cargo for a living. But when they heard children crying on that station, when they saw families holding each other waiting for death, logic stopped mattering. Minho gestured to where the video had played. "You watched Zerthan military ships follow perfect protocol. They saved 800 lives and withdrew at exactly the right moment. It was the correct decision. Any species in this galaxy would have made the same choice. It was logical, rational, and proper. But humans are not logical, he continued. We saw those 1,200 people and we broke. Something in us simply broke at the thought of them dying when we might do something, anything, even something impossible. 122 people gave their lives for strangers, for aliens they had never met, for children who were not their own species. The silence continued. Ambassador Krill sat motionless in his delegation box, his 4 arms perfectly still. Minho's voice grew softer. You fear our emotions. You think they make us dangerous and unpredictable. Perhaps you are right, but I ask you to consider what galaxy you want to live in. One where ships follow proper protocols and save who they can. Or one where sometimes, just sometimes, someone refuses to accept that math is final and children must die. He looked directly at Krill. You are not wrong about us, Ambassador. We are emotional. We are irrational. We make choices that no logical species would make. But those 1,200 people on Cordova 7 are alive today because humans cannot do math when children are crying. Minho bowed slightly to the council. I have nothing more to say. Judge us as you see fit. But now you know exactly who we are. He returned to the human delegation box and sat down. The speaker stood, clearly shaken. Does any delegate wish to speak before we vote? For a long moment, nobody moved. Then Ambassador Velis of the Solarian delegation rose slowly. I have been a member of this council for 32 years, Velis said, his voice unsteady. I have seen much in that time. I have watched species join us and prove their worth through science, through art, through commerce. Today I saw something I did not know existed. He turned toward the human delegation box. Ambassador Park, I watched my own species' ships in that video. We followed protocol. We did everything correctly. We saved lives efficiently and professionally. And we left 1,200 people to die because it was the logical choice. Velis took a breath. I am withdrawing Solarian support for humanity's expulsion. I do not know if the galaxy needs humans, but I know those 1,200 people needed them, and they were there. He sat down. Silence fell again. Then another delegate stood. Then another. One by one, delegates from across the chamber rose and withdrew their support for expulsion. Not all of them. Some remained seated, unconvinced, but the tide had clearly turned. Finally, Ambassador Krill stood. The chamber fell silent again. Everyone waited to hear what the Zerthan who had initiated the expulsion would say. Krill's voice was different now. The confidence was gone, replaced by something raw and uncertain. I watched my own people in that video, he said quietly. I watched Zerthan military vessels perform exactly as they should. Perfect protocol, perfect execution, perfect logic. He paused. They saved 800 lives and felt satisfied with their efficiency. His 4 arms moved in a gesture of distress. Then I watched humans commit suicide. I watched them destroy themselves for strangers, and I did not understand. I still do not understand. Everything in my training, my culture, my species' entire philosophy says what they did was wasteful and irrational. Krill looked directly at Minho. But I cannot stop thinking about those 1,200 people. They are alive. Their children are alive. All because humans do not think the way we do. He turned to address the full council. I withdraw my motion for expulsion. I do not do this because I understand humans. I do this because I fear what it means if we reject beings capable of such sacrifice. What does that say about us? What does that say about the galaxy we have built? Krill sat down heavily. The chamber erupted in conversation. Delegates argued with each other. Some still insisted humanity was too dangerous. Others countered that rejecting such sacrifice would be monstrous. The debate raged for over an hour. Finally, the speaker called for order. This council will now vote on the expulsion of humanity. All in favor of expulsion? Scattered lights appeared throughout the chamber, perhaps 30 delegates out of 200. All opposed to expulsion? The chamber lit up like stars. 170 delegates voted against expulsion. The motion fails, the speaker announced. Humanity will retain its council membership. The chamber erupted again. Some delegates celebrated, others looked troubled. Ambassador Krill sat quietly in his box, staring at nothing. Minho felt no triumph. He thought about Captain Song watching this somewhere on Earth. He thought about the families of 122 people who would never see this moment. The victory felt hollow. After the session ended, delegates filed out slowly. Many approached Minho. Some offered congratulations. Others expressed reservations. A few seemed angry that emotion had overcome logic. Ambassador Krill approached last. The Zerthan stood before the human delegation box, silent for a long moment. "I owe you an apology," Krill finally said. "I treated this as a simple matter of logic. Humans disrupt order, therefore humans must go. I did not consider that sometimes disrupting order is necessary." "You were not wrong about us," Minho replied quietly. "We do disrupt things. We do make decisions emotionally. We will continue to frustrate logical species." "I know," Krill said. "That is what troubles me. And yet I cannot argue for the expulsion of beings who would die for strangers' children. What does that make me if I do?" He made a gesture of respect and walked away, leaving Minho alone in the delegation box. Later, Minho stood in the observation deck where he had spent so many worried nights. The station bustled around him as always. Ships came and went. The galaxy continued as it always had. But something had changed. Word of the vote had spread quickly. As Minho watched the stars, he heard footsteps approaching. The Zerthan maintenance worker who had insulted him days before stood nearby. They said nothing, but slowly, carefully, the Zerthan reached out and placed a hand on Minho's shoulder. Just for a moment. Then they walked away without a word. Minho watched a human freight convoy pass by the station, just ordinary cargo ships, worn from years of service. They carried supplies and equipment to distant outposts. Routine work done by ordinary people. People who would do impossible things without hesitation if children were crying somewhere in the dark. Minho finally allowed himself to smile. Humanity had a place among the stars, not because they were logical or rational or followed proper protocols, but because when the galaxy needed someone to break every rule for strangers, humans would be there. They would always be there. He returned to his quarters and composed a message to Earth, to Secretary General Yuna, to Captain Song, to the families of 122 heroes who had died making an impossible delivery. "We remain," he wrote simply. "They saw who we are, and we remain. Your loved ones made that possible. The galaxy will remember them." He sent the message and looked out at the stars again. Somewhere out there, on a mining station that should have been destroyed, 2,000 people from 17 species lived and worked and raised their children. Because humans could not do math when children were crying. And now, the galaxy knew it.